Happy Tuesday, everybody here on the Southside Beat. My name is Chris Halicke, kicking things off. Welcome. Corey will be here soon. He's working on the Southside today. Obviously, the Steelers are back at practice with it being a Saturday game yet again. There will be everything's up a day. So today is Tuesday, but it feels a lot like a Wednesday for everybody who covers the NFL. It's going to feel like a Wednesday for everybody. Practice today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And then off day Friday, or at least for media covering the team. And then game on Saturday. Yet again, everybody get excited, right? Yeah. Oh, boy. All right. So we got some things to talk about today. Now, we hit a lot of stuff yesterday. And, questionable res Corey today, hotspot Corey. Last few times he's been on his hotspot. It's been pretty good. Been pretty good there. I'm seeing this in the comments. DK tweeted it out earlier. No Ramon show until Thursday. That's when they're coming back. Not sure of the reason. I'm sure the holidays probably are, playing some sort of role in there. There's a lot of stuff going on. I know for me, like my kids are on winter break. So they're both in their respective rooms right now, hoping that they keep it quiet. So yeah, it's fun. Hey, and this is kind of a good thing. Matt says, listen, I'm looking forward to the end of the season and the draft. That's pretty much where we're at. Because one thing I was going to kind of want to talk about today was how do we kind of approach these final three games, and that includes how the team approaches the final three games. Now, obviously, there's going to be some debate there. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, listen, the Steelers just need to lose out, go 7-10, bite the bullet, and put yourself in the best position possible in the draft. And long term, that sounds like a good plan. There is some residual effects to doing that. If your coach walks into the room and then Teresa's saying it, tank. Appreciate it, Mark. I like the terrible towel too. I have a few different themed ones. That's one of them. That's probably one of my favorite ones. Beefel says 7-10 plays all I want for Christmas as a new coaching staff. The whole losing out thing and getting yourself in the best position for the draft, that at this point in the season, it's I wouldn't say it's the worst idea, but there are residual effects to doing that. When your coach walks into a room for a team meeting and gives off any kind of vibe that you are not trying to win football games, that's a culture killer, right? And listen, we have been openly critical about the Steelers culture right now. It is open to full scrutiny, to full criticism. Not taking anything away from that. There is definitely cracks in the foundation when it comes to the way this team's culture, at least just the form that it's in right now. But I think that truly is the final nail in the coffin. As soon as you give off the vibe to any players that winning is not your number one priority, that's it. That's over. That's when you do have to say no ifs, ands, or buts. It's time for Mike Tomlin to go. That's the end of it. Last year when the Steelers were. It was kind of the opposite, and they turned things around. They started off 2-6, and then they went on that run and finished 9-8. And there were still some people saying, tank, put yourself in the best position for the draft possible. I think what you did, or what the team did in that stretch, was it helped with the culture. It helped, and culture does translate to the field. And I think that the only way that you can really try to salvage anything, because regardless of what happens with the coaching staff, with the offensive coordinator, with the draft, with free agency, anything like that, there are going to be a number of players that are on this roster now that are going to be there next year, right? And Teresa, I get it. These are all like, where did that get us? Like, I get it. Like, and I think one big residual effect and mistake there from Mike Tomlin was keeping Matt Canada employed. That really, I mean, the offense was never going to, again, ceiling was right here. You know, when you talk about potential with the talent that you have, you know, you could talk about what they could do, but the scheme under Matt Canada and the system it wasn't going to let you get above there. You had a low ceiling with this offense, with this offensive coordinator. And that's just the way Mike Tomlin's operated, you know, since he's been coached. The only time the offense has really ever been explosive was whenever they developed it into what it became whenever the killer bees were there, when Ben was at the best that he ever was, you know, in terms of, you know, putting up stats and things like that. When you had Antonio Brown go from a 6th round pick into, you know, superstar wide receiver, best wide receiver in the league. When you had Le'Veon Bell go from 2nd round pick to arguably best running back in the league, and you had weapons galore, and you pretty much had no choice but to let the offense be explosive. But when you have a defensive minded head coach, you're okay with the offense doing just enough while the defense is really the heart and soul of the team. And that is just where that's, and what happens now when you settle for what the Steelers have on offense in today's NFL. You could get away with that 10 years ago. But today, in today's NFL, there's so much focus on offense, so much focus on, and offenses are harder to defend than they ever have been because of size, of speed, of concepts, of a number of different variables. And it's Rick says low ceiling, bottomless floor. I mean, listen, and you know, everything going wrong, everything that could have, this really is like Murphy's Law. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Like just about. I mean, other than like catastrophic injuries on offense, it went wrong. And it is getting to the point now where players are getting, they're getting openly frustrated. And that, in my opinion, with no true leadership on the offensive side of the ball, you still have some on the defensive side of the ball with Minka, with TJ, with Cam, those guys, but there's no guy on the offensive side of the ball that I can definitely look at and say that guy is a leader. I would like to think Najee can be one. I would like to think Pat Freiermuth can be one. But there's no guy that I can look at and say he knows the Steelers way. And I hate to kind of go back to that, but when you're talking about how to get out of this and how to attack the final 3 games, if I'm a player in that locker room, it's let's do everything we can to salvage this season, regardless of how it plays out in wins and losses. Let's put our own issues aside because we know it's almost over. And let's try to come together and really try to become a more cohesive unit. Even though we're probably going to be under a new system next year with a new offensive coordinator, so on and so forth, do everything you can to be a cohesive unit going into that. Mentoring Men says, how do we build leadership? Do we hire in better coaches? That's part of it. I do believe coaching staff. I do believe a better coaching staff, or at least a better offensive coordinator helps with that. Helps coordinate, coaches to coach better details. And that's like episode of the, title of today's episode, All in the Details, because Diontae Johnson, when he talked to the media this morning, it's funny because that's what my Chalk Talk was about. And then Diontae talks and he's openly critical of details being all over the place. They are. It's terrible. It's bad. Is it Chris? I heard Ben Roethlisberger say Pat doesn't have that in him to be a vocal leader. Also heard Najee talks big, then slides in the background. No offensive leader. Pat, I can. from having the conversations that I've had with Pat and talking with him, that he's also kind of a softer spoken guy. Probably not as soft spoken as Diontae, but you do have some guys that are like that on that side of the ball. And Pat and Diontae are two really good examples of it that have tried to kind of step up into leadership roles, and it's not their forte. Like they're willing to do it, but they're not natural born leaders. It's not second nature to them. Teresa says better coaches who are better at spotting true leadership. I think Najee could be that guy, and there's a lot of criticism with Najee. B. Phil says I'm sure Najee could be that guy, but he isn't even the best running back. I'm not going to go up and down with the whole Najee Jalen thing again. I'm just not. Now, Najee had a terrible game against the Colts. I'm not denying that. I'm not looking for excuses or anything. I'm not making excuses, I should say. Najee had a terrible game against the Colts. Missed some wide open holes. No idea what's going on there. But I don't think Najee or anybody on this offense really is being used to their full potential. I don't. I think this is a terribly coached system, which is why you haven't seen anybody grow, and you've really even seen some players regress. It's bad, man. It's bad. It's in a bad situation, and that's why I'm saying, like, yeah, you could go ahead and tank, but that's just kind of, it's like when you're like, at least for me, I'm just gonna go like personal parallel here. It's like whenever I've been playing a hockey game, and my team's getting absolutely just demolished. We're losing like 9-2 or whatever, which just happened before. It doesn't happen that often, but it's happened. We're losing like 9-2. And it's just like, why even bother? For me, I'm going out there. I'm still playing like it's a 3-3 game, and we're trying to get the game, the go-ahead score. That's just the way I play. That's my mentality. I'm going to go down swinging, and that's how I'd like to see this team respond. Okay, if you're going to go down, if the ship is going to sink, it's going to sink. It's like being on the Titanic, knowing, okay, well, this pretty soon this ship is going to be at the bottom of the ocean floor. Now, you could just kind of give in. You could just be like, lay there and let the, just sink with the ship, whatever, or you can try to save as many lives as possible. And that even includes your own, try to, salvage what you can, and I think, and that's business asks, have they given up? When you look at the effort on the field, I mean, that's a legitimate question. I can't answer that question for you. I wish I could. But when you look at the effort on the field, man, like this is a demoralized football team right now. They're just demoralized. They aren't doing anything right. Their details are all over the place. The route running sloppy. Pass protection still can't be figured out. And Jim says it here. It'll show the character of the players, and I that's why I'm saying, like, I think this team could very realistically be 7-10. Even if they play with a fire lit under their butts in the final 3 games of the season. That's honestly the best case scenario. This team goes out there and they fight for 60 minutes and they just lose. Good cause. That's losing for a good cause, but at least it's losing the right way. As a parent, that's something that my son is very, very, very competitive, maybe even more competitive than I am. I mean, that's saying something because I'm a pretty competitive person. I don't like losing. My son really does not like losing. And so I've got to tell him, like, listen, you're going to lose games. You're going to lose them. There's a right way to lose. And that's what this team, that's what you want to see with this team. You have to find the right way to lose here. Losing the way they've lost to the Cardinals, to the Patriots, to the Colts, that's the wrong way to lose. Sloppy all over the place. No urgency, no fire, no fight. It's just it's terrible. You're not losing the right way. You're throwing in the towel before the game's even halfway over. Can't do it, man. That can't happen. You go out there, you fight, you play hard. and you still end up losing. There's honor in that, especially at this point where you kind of know, the writing's on the wall. This team isn't going anywhere. Even if they were to, again, hypothetically, they were to go out there, they were to win out, finish 10-7, and luck their way into a 7 seed or something like that. They're not going anywhere. This team, it's not going anywhere. So, but you want to play to try to do that. That's what I want to see from this team. That's, I think, the right way to go about it is do exactly that. Fight like you are still trying to make the playoffs. And as soon as you're mathematically eliminated, you still salvage what you can. You don't let that fate dictate how you play. You still play hard. That's what you got to do. That's what I think they need to do. Perfect timing, because joining me here on the Southside Beat is Mr. Corey Crisan.
Hello.
And the very, very well lit UPMC ruining sports complex.
Let's rest the laptop on a Gatorade cooler and see if that works. There's a little light like back there that I'm trying to reef off of. Hello.
What's up, Corey? How are things on the South Side today, man? Is it as dark? Is the mood as dark as the room you're in right now?
Did you hear what George Pickens said?
I did not.
Did you read what George Pickens said?
You know what?
I'll tell you what, Chris. You and those that are listening, if you have your phone accessible, why don't you go to the feed on DKPittsburghSports.com?
I did not see that yet.
And all right, it's there. There's a lot of it there.
Pulling it up right now. Hold on a second.
George Pickens was asked about the play that you would expect him to be asked about.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go ahead and
the effort we've been talking about.
Why don't you go ahead and just read what he said?
Okay. Quote, I was trying to prevent the Tank Dell situation. Same thing happened to Tank Dell. I didn't want to get injured. If you stay in and block somebody, you can get run up on very easily. Oh, my God.
Scroll down.
Follow up questioning this effort. They don't play football. They do what y'all do.
This is live reaction right here.
Like I said,
this
everybody
is turned into a reaction video.
Yeah, like I said, everybody that's got opinions are all media, selfish guys. None of them play football. Well, all right. When we're talking about culture, which is what we've been talking about, I'm with Monongahela Mike after that. SHIT
stuff.
That one's if I'm Omar Khan, I'm open to trade talks in the offseason. That is a perfect situation of I don't care how talented you are. I don't care how much of a freakish athlete you are. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. And listen, I didn't play football above high school level, so I'm not going to try to pretend that I understand anything about playing football at the NFL level. I don't. I didn't even play in college. But that is unacceptable. I don't have to be a former NFL player to hear that and think that is just absolute horse manure.
Well, in fact, George Pickens said as much today, too. I don't have anything to add. I really don't have anything to add. I think the words speak for themselves. I really do. What I would honestly rather focus on in a more positive way is Mason Rudolph. And I know that, what I've said about Mason Rudolph in weeks past, I still stand by every word of it, that he's not the second coming of Joe Montana.
No.
But there's a feel-good component to this on Mason's side. Now,
yeah,
you'll read later on DKPittsburghSports.com. Let's not pretend that this is Mike Tomlin saying we have full confidence in Mason. He's our guy. He's the one that's going to take us to the promised land, because that's not what this is. This is Mitch is playing so bad and Kenny's banged up that this is what we're down to. We have to give this a shot to save the season. That's what this is. But for Mason Rudolph, this is an opportunity for him. This is a chance for him. This is for the first time in a long time for him. And in that spectrum, I asked him today, I said, is there any pressure to perform on Saturday? Because Mike Tomlin talked on Monday about the need to score more points and the need to, you can't score 12, 14, 16 points in December and win football games. And I asked Mason, I'm like, is there pressure to do that? And he said, no, not really. Like, we know we have to score. We know we have to do better. And it's my chance, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, to do this. And, he was later asked, like, do you feel this is a chance to, like, show the NFL what you could do? And he just reiterated, like, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, like, this is the first time he smiled in a while because he's preparing as a starter. He has a chance. And yeah, you could laugh a little bit. You could laugh a little bit about Mason, about the concept of him starting, which is laughable. But, this really does bring the human element down to it. This is a chance for Mason Rudolph to do something. And he hasn't been given this shot in a very long time. So I found that human side of it very interesting today. Kenny Pickett did return to practice today. Injury report hasn't come out yet, so I can't say in what frequency, but I can say he was back at practice today. So, Mike Tomlin left the door open for Kenny Pickett. And if Kenny Pickett's healthy enough, or at least they feel he's healthy enough, he's probably going to play. So we got a long week ahead of us still. Today I got on at 15. I was worried I wasn't going to get on the show today. There was so much that's going on over here today.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening right now. And I think the injury report's going to dictate a lot of what we could see on Saturday. I really do. And, you're going to expect what you pretty much are expecting on the first injury report of the week, as far as like the rest guys and the guys that took things lighter. But, this is going to be a really interesting week from that perspective. But that's where they're at right now. Again, what we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks about the absolute, chaotic state of affairs that this team is in. And now this is what they're down to. So they have to figure out a way. They have to find a way, right? And I looked up the amount of teams that are starting third-string quarterbacks. It's more than you think, actually. Have started 3 quarterbacks this season. It's more than you think, actually.
Quarterback depth has been a huge thing around the NFL this year. Huge.
And it's not like the Steelers are in a position where, they're bringing Joe Flacco off the couch or they're bringing in, whoever off the street. Like Mason at least has been here. So, that's a little bit something. Darren, is Eric Rose starting at safety? I can't disclose that information. I can't disclose that.
You'd have to have somebody say it on record if somebody was taking first team reps or something like that.
Correct. I can't disclose that information. So yeah, that's where we're at. George Pickens said what he said, and you can read it on the feed on DKPittsburghSports.com. Mason Rudolph, in a brighter sense, I have to put that on the feed still. I literally uploaded things to YouTube and got here so I could give a little bit of input to this show today. Still a long afternoon to go on the south side, but you'll read a column I'll have on DKPittsburghSports.com. And I tried to be nice about this, but this quarterback situation is a lose-lose situation for the Steelers. It just is. And with Kenny's health, you factor in Kenny's health as well. It's a lose-lose, parentheses, lose situation. So you'll read more about that later.
Yeah, it's because if Mason Rudolph is starting, obviously, that means Kenny's not, and really what you need at this point, regardless of what transpires next season, what who is hired as offensive coordinator, how the Steelers approach free agency or the draft, when it comes to the quarterback position, you still need as much tape, as much film as you can get on Kenny. If there's any hope for anything, you need to see it. And honestly, I think a situation like this is probably the most opportune time you want to see Kenny play, is because you want to see, okay, this team is at rock bottom right now. And if there's another level of rock bottom, they might even get to that. But this things could not be worse. Like as we sit right now, things could not be worse for how this team is playing. You need, okay, how does Kenny, we talked about it earlier at the beginning of the show. How do the players respond? How does Kenny respond to that? How does he elevate his game? How can he elevate his game regardless of all of the other variables, regardless of George Pickens's terrible effort, regardless of of how the system handicaps him? Regardless of any of that stuff, how can he elevate his game? Because if you can see stuff like that, maybe the Steelers go, you know what? Maybe we don't need to maybe we do need to give Kenny a legitimate chance under another coordinator and see what he can do under a guy who understands how to coach and coordinate an offense in 2024.
I will say tombstone pile driver. There you go, Darren. A wrestling. If I could give the Steelers season a wrestling reference, a wrestling finisher name, it's the tombstone pile driver. 1, 2, 3 done.
I got one.
The Steelers are the Undertaker's WrestleMania opponent every year. That's not Brock Lesnar. That's what they are. There's your wrestling reference for the day.
My wrestling reference. My finisher move is just go to sleep.
The GCS.
That's what I want.
It's an RKO out of nowhere.
I just want to go to sleep. Just go to sleep. That's what I want to do.
Season-long casket match. Oh, God. We're going to start talking pro wrestling here.
Phil. Yeah, see, B Phil and I are on the same page. Just go to sleep.
So would Phil. So would Phil B, coincidentally. Interesting you say that. Isn't his real name Phil Brooks?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Punk's real name, Phil? Are you CM Punk?
No,
B Phil? Hello?
I don't think CM Punk would have anything other than Chicago in his profile picture.
Hey, we don't know. He could be a Steeler fan. We don't know.
He's not. He's definitely not a Steelers fan.
It would be an RKO out of nowhere. It would be a tag team I always liked. Do you have like a mid wrestler or a mid tag team that you like? Mine's the Good Brothers, Anderson and Gallows. I like Anderson and Gallows, and the Magic Killer is a great finisher for me. So it could be a Magic Killer as well.
Yeah, that's just get this back to football a little bit. That's bad. Actually,
like
you took the question away.
Darren, here's the thing though. Tony Khan's winning down in Jacksonville.
That's bad asks, should Tomlin and Kenny's future be tied together? That's not out of the question because there might be, for example, if Art Rooney does decide somehow to part ways with Mike Tomlin, however that would transpire, whether that be a firing, whether that be a trade, however that would be, whoever would step in might want to choose their own quarterback. They might say, I want nothing to do with Kenny Pickett. If Mike Tomlin comes in, or if Mike Tomlin remains the coach next season, which I think if you're playing the percentages, that's a pretty good chance. But if the new offensive coordinator comes in and he says, listen, I don't, Kenny would not fit my system. We don't have time to try to teach this guy a new system. We got to get a new guy. Then, that might be it. So it could be tied together. I don't think necessarily. I think there's still a bit of I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer right now because they could be tied together. I don't know. It
depends on the coordinator they hire. I think.
Yeah.
I think it completely depends on the coordinator they hire.
I think it's more tied to that than it is the coach.
We talked about this yesterday. If they go out and get an offensive coordinator, that first off, it depends on who they're interviewing for this. Because in the interview, like Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney could literally say, "We have Kenny Pickett. We want you to use Kenny Pickett. We want you to get the best out of Kenny Pickett. How do you do that?" Yeah. And they could say, well, I'm thinking we do this, or what about the draft? And if Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney don't want to go to the direction of the draft, then we're all, by the way, assuming that this is going to include Mike Tomlin this offseason. I mean, right now, as we sit here in with the week before Christmas, we don't know what the offseason is going to bring. Mike Tomlin is assuming to be finishing this contract out, but we don't truly know anything right now. So if we're for the sake of conversation saying Mike Tomlin's going to have one more year here before that contract runs out, then do they hire a coordinator that is eager to get the best out of Kenny Pickett, or do they hire a coordinator that says, well, I really like this Jaden Daniels kid. I want to give him a shot. I want to give him a look. Maybe we should scout him a little harder. Yeah. It depends on what that new coordinator wants to do. So Mike Tomlin and Kenny Pickett being tied together, so to speak, I agree. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I could see it either way, where they are tied together or they are not tied together.
Yeah, I do think it is more tied to who the new offensive coordinator is, but then that also falls under the umbrella of whether Mike Tomlin's the head coach next year or not.
Yep.
Like I said, you're playing the percentages. I would if you're betting, I would bet on Mike Tomlin being the coach next year, just because he's under contract. The Rooneys don't fire coaches. Yeah, but I mean, at this point, I mean, shoot, if this team does end up losing 6 in a row to end the season, if they go from 7-4 to finishing 7-10, maybe that's enough for Art Rooney to be like, and not just along with the results, but with the way everything else is crumbling, how the culture seems to be crumbling. That might be enough for Art to say, clean slate. Let's
MX asks, why didn't anyone ask Tomlin about calling timeouts at the end of the game? Because they were down 30-13 and that didn't matter. Or they were down 27-13. That didn't matter.
No.
Like, that's a moot point by this stage. And if Mason Rudolph gets put in with 2 minutes to go, that's a moot point. I mean, until he gets named the starter the day, 2 days after. But then,
anyway. It turns out that Tomlin put Mason in to help knock some of the rust off with what he could. Yeah. I mean, Tomlin at that point was kind of already over Mitch. It was just like he might as well just put Mason in and be like, let me try to get as much rust knocked off in case he's got to be my starter next week if Kenny can't go. So
yeah. All right, we're on to Wednesday, Coordinator Wednesday tomorrow. Chris, thank you for taking the ball today and running with it.
No problem, man. Like,
I did my best to block as best as I can for you today.
I cannot believe George Pickens said that. That is unreal.
My knee is fine. Mr. Malvo, thank you for joining.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, welcome.
That means a lot. Thank you. And welcome to all new members and welcome to all current members. We appreciate you here on the Southside Beat. A bit of a bridge show for me, but this has been a heck of a day over here. Obviously, if you want to read more of what George Pickens had to say, you can go to our feed, DKPittsburghSports.com. It's all there for you in audio form. I was in the podium room with Mason Rudolph while he said that. So a generous fellow beat member over here was able to help us out. So that's what happens. Sometimes you share things and the word gets out and it would be on there one way or another. So, all right, we're on to Wednesday. We'll hear from Terrell Austin and Eddie Faulkner tomorrow. Yep. He's Chris Halicke and I'm Corey Crisan. I got to get out of here.
Yep.
This has been the Southside Beat. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.